Oh, I see. All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here this morning. I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation with you. All right, so today for Tech Bits, we are going to be covering Class Dojo and how to turn your classroom into a community. We're going to go ahead and start with a quick overview of what we are going to be discussing today. So I want to start by talking about in detail what is Class Dojo and why are teachers and educators choosing to use it, as well as talking about some of the classroom features within the program and navigating a demo class. And from there, whenever you're ready, you can create and navigate your own classroom within Class Dojo. Something else that's really great about Class Dojo is they have a lot of resources for teachers, not only professional development opportunities, but just quick question answer videos for different tools and features on Class Dojo. So if you're struggling with something, it's really easy to find an answer to what you're struggling with, or maybe something else that could help you. I also want to show you some of my favorite features of Class Dojo, which is their social emotional learning videos, which are under their resources tab as well. And if there's time, we'll kind of explore and go from there. Some outcomes that I'm hoping to achieve with this presentation is that you become familiar with Class Dojo features, and maybe you're able to figure out some ways that you could utilize Class Dojo in your classroom or in your job if you're not in the classroom. Another thing that I'm hoping that you get out of this presentation is that you are open to the idea of using other ed tech tools in the future. So hopefully you take something from this and you're like, oh, I would maybe try something different in the future as well. Before I tell you all about Class Dojo, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Tessa Talsma, and I'm a digital learning coach here at Region 9. Before I became a digital learning coach, I was an educator for over 6 years. I taught 3rd and 6th grade. I loved both. Middle school was fun, 3rd grade was fun. I utilized Class Dojo in both classrooms, and I utilized it in different ways. And surprisingly, both ages were very, very receptive to it. So I really enjoyed using it for my teaching career, and I'm hoping that it'll be a good tool for others in the future. I'm very passionate about student engagement and student learning, and this tool is really easy for teachers to use. It's easy for students to use, and I feel that it covers both engagement and learning. So jumping right in, why do educators and admin like to use Class Dojo? I want to start with what might be the most important feature of the program, which is that it is completely free for educators to use. So often quality platforms for students and teachers will charge a basic fee or fees to use some of the better features that you probably have to have in order to use the platform. Everything shown to date is going to be completely free for educators to use as long as you create an account. And what's really neat is if you don't want to use your school account to create the account, you want to use your personal account, you can do that too. And all of these features are still free. Something else that teachers really like about Class Dojo is that it allows them to create a community within their school or their classroom. It's up to them how big they want to create that community. They do this by communication, collaboration, and engagement within families and students. Class Dojo allows for educators to create an open line of communication that supports student learning, and it also gives students appropriate coping skills through their social emotional learning videos to get through big or challenging experiences. And then finally, Class Dojo helps teachers create a collaborative classroom community using positive classroom management skills. And so what's going to happen with this presentation is I'm going to go through all of these in a bit more detail in the slideshow, and then we're going to jump onto Class Dojo and navigate it live. And you'll basically be hearing this twice. So you'll be hearing it and seeing it on the screen, and then we're going to navigate it together. So my second point on the last slide was why educators are using Class Dojo, and it was to create a community within their school or their classroom. So Class Dojo allows teachers to use both a school and class story to create a community environment. So what this means is if you are in a school where multiple or even majority of the educators in your school are using Class Dojo, you might want to use a school story to share what's going on in your classroom, because not only will your class see it, but any other educator that's verified with your school will see it as well. However, if you find yourself being one of the few educators in your school that uses Class Dojo, or you just would rather limit it to just your classroom, you can do that too and just focus on a class story. So there's a school story and a class story. For the purpose of this presentation, I am going to be focusing on just the class story, because every educator can create a class story. However, if their school is not verified or they don't have other educators to collaborate with, the school story is not going to do a whole lot for them. So for the purpose of this, we're just going to focus on the class story. And so with that being said, the class story feed looks very similar to other social media platforms that we as educators and adults use. Think kind of Facebook. And it is secure for families to join and have access to the class and view your class story. So whatever you choose to share with these families, it's going to be posted and it'll be right there and available for them. It also allows educators to view insights and engagement within the school or classroom. So if you're looking at the image on my slide, you can see an example of that. And so you can see that within that week, there were 17 messages sent to the family, 10 photos and videos shared. There was 100% positive feedback. And then you can also see underneath that there is feedback from the week before. So you can kind of compare, maybe one week was a lot more chatty, maybe one had maybe a little less positive feedback. You can look at that and use that data however you wish. Using this platform, you're also able to send out announcements and files to your entire class. So through your class story, you can send out these announcements. So you don't have to worry about papers getting lost or families being notified late about big announcements. So I know I often found myself either forgetting to pass something out by the end of the day, or the day just got away from me and the papers didn't go home. With Class Dojo, you can take a photo of the flyer that needed to go home, post it onto your story, and parents can view it from there. So here you can see an example of a class story and what it might look like in the newsfeed. So at the top, you have your image that you choose for your profile. And then you're able to keep families informed through photos, videos, files, recordings, events, and just simple type messages, as you can see in the example. With that being said, whenever we get onto the platform, I'll show you exactly what each of those looks like, so we can go a little bit more in depth with each of them. Teachers are also able to see who views and receives the posts that they make, and that could be either by their students or their families. And also students and families can comment and like the posts that are created, so that it creates community engagement. What's cool about the liking and commenting is that you are able to turn that off in your settings. So maybe you're not comfortable with your students commenting on things. Maybe you don't want to monitor parents commenting on your Class Dojo posts. Whatever the case may be, if you're maybe wanting to limit that communication for some reason, you are able to do that. So continuing with creating community, in order to do that, another way that we can help build that, is communication. So another reason educators in schools choose to use Class Dojo is for the ways that they are able to communicate with families. Aside from the class stories that we just talked about, teachers have the option to message families through Class Dojo, which I'll show you. This is a perk to educators because it allows them to communicate without giving out their personal information. So I know that whenever COVID happened in the classrooms in 2020, a lot of educators were caught giving out their personal information. I was one of them, and that comes back and it doesn't end up working out very well. And so with Class Dojo, you don't have to give out any personal information. You are able to message with families very easily without giving out your phone number or anything like that, or having to create a Google number or anything to that degree. What's also really cool about this program is that it is able to translate your messages into 35 different languages. So if communication is an issue, maybe you have a couple families that don't have English as their first language, maybe their home language is different than what's being taught in school, whatever the case may be. Using Google Translate, Class Dojo is able to translate messages and you're able to communicate back and forth with families regardless of language barriers, which is really cool. And then lastly, if there's other educators in your school using Class Dojo, this is just another way to reach out to them. Maybe you want to let a co-teacher know that little Sally forgot her coat for PE. Maybe you want to let the nurse know that you're sending someone down, whatever the case may be, whoever you have on there, you can reach out, send a quick message to. So you have messaging ability with both families and staff members. Okay, and here you can see an example of messages within a class. So out to the side, you can see my name, Ms. Talsma's class, and then you can see messages. You'll see my student's name and followed by their name, you see the word parent because it's their family communication, right? So when a parent signs up or you invite them and they accept your invitation, you are able to directly message with them. So within the message, you have read receipts, so you can see when families have read your messages, and you can also schedule reminders at the beginning of the week, so you don't have to keep reminding yourself to set a reminder. So let's say that it's Sunday, you have those Sunday scaries, you know, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't let parents forget that on Thursday we have pictures. And so you can write on Sunday, you can schedule a reminder for Wednesday to let parents know that on Thursday there's pictures, right? And so then you don't have to keep trying to remind yourself to set that reminder or send that reminder. You can also set quiet hours with messaging. So you can respect that work-life balance that I neglected to do whenever I gave out my personal number during COVID, right? Absolutely, you can support a healthy work-life balance with Class Dojo by setting quiet hours. And you can still see the messages and things like that, but it will give a little quiet like notification that you have your quiet hours set. All right, so in order to create this community, you need family buy-in, you need teacher buy-in, but you also need student buy-in. In order to get student buy-in, you need student engagement. And so EdTech tools are great for student engagement. Class Dojo specifically allows students to create portfolios of their work and what they're learning in class. So teachers create activities within the platform and they can choose how their students respond, whether it's by video, text, image, file uploads, drawing. They have a lot of different options. And this is really great for differentiating in the classroom and meeting students where they are in their learning. So as I've stated before, my favorite part of Class Dojo is their social emotional component, and that's under their big idea videos. I found that the videos are useful for all of the ages that I've taught. However, I do think that maybe upper middle school and high school might not be as receptive to them, just as they are cartoons and they are kind of geared more towards elementary, possibly middle school's social emotional issues that they may run into. It's not to say that as an adult and as an educator, whenever I'd listen to these videos, they weren't great reminders. There weren't tools and skills that I was able to take away. Like I still was utilizing those skills as an adult. It's just, I understand sometimes students aren't always receptive in certain environments. So continuous student engagement, this is what it looks like whenever an educator chooses to create an activity. So in addition to portfolios, students create activities assigned by their teachers through Class Dojo. And what's neat about this is you as a teacher can decide how you want students to respond to the activity. So this is a cool feature because you can differentiate between students and how you want them to respond. So at the bottom, I kind of unfortunately have it cut off, but when we get on the website, you'll be able to see it better. It says whole class assigned. You can change that to where only certain students are assigned certain assignments or activities, excuse me. So maybe you want a majority of the class to respond with a text response, but maybe there's a handful that you'd rather have a verbal response from. You can repost the video, or I'm sorry, repost the activity and then change how you want the response type and select those students. So you can differentiate within your classroom. This is nice because it gives your students the opportunity to take ownership over their learning and engage with their work in a way that works best for them. Completed activities can be added to the students' portfolios and shared with families after teachers have reviewed them. And to further accommodate, teachers can record their instructions for students. So as you can see on the screen, there's a little record button, and once we go live on the website, we will play around with that button a little bit as well. So as I've stated now probably 4 or 5 times, social emotional learning is my kind of buy-in for why I use Class Dojo. Remember, Class Dojo is completely free, so I don't actually have to buy anything, but it is what really made me start using it almost on a daily basis with my students. So what their social emotional learning does is they use two relatable characters. There's Katie and Mojo. Katie is the blue monster that you see on the screen. Mojo's the green friend. So using those characters, empathy, growth mindset, respect, mindfulness, and many other really important concepts are taught to students in a short 3 to 5 minute long video. So not only do these lessons take up minimal time, but they teach really important social skills that help students kind of navigate their day-to-day lives. And so what I like about this is it doesn't take up a lot of time. And I know that a lot of educators often, if they're teaching general ed, they already have enough things that they're trying to cover. How are they supposed to squeeze in social emotional work? If it takes less than 5 minutes, it could be like done before the bell. It can be done during breakfast time. I know that oftentimes I would either use it during breakfast or right before lunch as like a kind of a transition period. So it takes less than 5 minutes to complete. The videos are very short. There's also discussion questions at the end. So you don't have to do any sort of prep or anything. You can throw on the video, have students think, pair, share, discuss the questions, and you're hitting your social emotional needs for your students and yourself, right? So very super neat. I'm excited to kind of dive into that in a little while. So although social emotional is my personal favorite, I know that most educators choose to use Class Dojo for classroom management skills. So a feature that they love is the immediate positive feedback that you can provide to students within the classroom, or if they're at home, it can be done remotely as well. This feedback encourages positive behaviors in the classroom, and teachers can customize each button to what works for students and their classroom needs, because each year is a little bit different. Sometimes what you want to praise is going to change. Sometimes what needs work is going to change. You can also add notes to provide individualized feedback to students, and teachers decide what's shared with families. And so whenever you create your account, you can decide, you can always change it, but you decide what kind of feedback you want shared with families. So do you want the positive feedback you're giving students shared back with families? Do you want both the positive and the needs work shared with families? That's up to you to decide, and I'll show you how you can change that as well. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing the presentation, and I'm going to transfer over to Class Dojo, and we're going to kind of start signing in and playing around with the actual screen. So let me go ahead and get off of here. And so Class Dojo, you'll just type Class Dojo. If you want to watch me, that's fine. If you want to follow along with the split screen on your side, whatever you're comfortable with, I'm fine with. When you go to classdojo.com, this is what appears. And so I'm currently signed out. So everyone should see something kind of similar. If you already have an account and you're signed in and you're waiting for me to get to the launch pad, that's awesome. If you haven't created an account and you're wanting to take it step by step with me, we can do that too. So I'm going to go up to this blue button where it says sign up. And when you click that, it's going to ask, are you a teacher, a parent, a student, or a school leader? So those of us that are signed up with Class Dojo as a parent, if you are a parent using Class Dojo for your kiddo, you'll need to use a different email for your teacher or professional account. And that might be a little bit frustrating, but it won't register you as a parent and a teacher or educator, school leader, that sort of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and choose teacher because I feel that most of us will probably be utilizing that aspect. And I'm just going to kind of make a fake account for right now. And so let's say that I am Mr. Wyatt, right? And so I'm going to fill in, but you're going to put in your true information. So you're going to use your real information. Don't use some fake information. I'm just using a fake one because I already have a real account, or not real account, but an account with my real information. So then you're going to put in your either school or personal email. So this is up to you. It connects you automatically. If your school is verified, it will connect your school email with your school and connect you almost immediately if you use your school email. If you choose to use your personal email, you can still get verified through your school. It just takes a few additional steps. So that's for you to decide. So you might be Wyatt at publicschools.org. And then you're going to create your own personal password. It gives you some suggestions. It also tells you the expectations. Okay, and then you are going to agree and then sign up. All right, and then it tells you to look for your school. So if you are working with a public school, it's probably present. So let's see here. Let's say I'm looking for Carrizozo schools. Oops, I need to spell it correctly. So they have our Carrizozo Elementary here. If I need something more specific, I can look. So it's looking like for New Mexico, there's a couple choices, mostly just elementary. Okay, if you need to add a school, you can. So for example, I don't teach in a school currently, so I had to go to I don't teach in a school. And then it can have you kind of choose different options of classroom tools, communicating with families, see what you want to help with. But as an educator, we're going to stay over here. So you're going to choose your school and then you'll move forward from here. Let's say that, let's see if they'll let me join this school just for fun. And so it's going to send a verification email to my email that I put in, as well as to the school that I just applied for. So obviously I made a fake account, so I'm going to log into my real account so we can actually see what the screen looks like. I don't have an email to actually verify that. So the school that's getting the email is going to say, Wyatt wants to join your school. They don't know who I am, so they're going to say, no way, Jose, and they're not going to let me in. So your Class Dojo mentor monitors that, so not just anybody can join. They're going to make sure that they know who's joining and why they're joining. Okay, so let me go back and actually sign in. So if you need to complete your sign-in process as you create an account, go ahead and do that while I'm getting signed in, please. Okay, so once you do get logged in, you're going to have what's called a launch pad, and it's kind of like your home screen. So looking at this right here, this is your launch pad. So you'll see off to the side, as an educator, you will not have this little stack right here. This comes with as a school leader or admin, I believe, and it just lists class and little basic information. You have access to all of these things. You just don't have that sidebar for some reason. So you will have something that says your classes. If you just created an account, you're only going to have the demo class and the new class button. However, this isn't a new account, so I also have a different sample class. If you have classes from previous years and things like that that you're no longer using, you can archive them by going to your setting button and going to archive. And you can access those archived classes, as you can see here, just by clicking there. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into classes momentarily. Before we do that, I want to talk about getting verified, that sort of thing in your school. So over here, you can see it has my name, and then it says I'm a school leader at Region 9. Region 9 is not an actual public school, therefore, it's not verified. And I'm sure I could take the steps to get it verified and do all of that at this time, but as it's just an example, I'm not going to go ahead, I'm not going to do that. But if you're teaching at a regular school, at a normal school, and so if you're teaching at Carrizozo Elementary as the example, it's going to pop up here as Carrizozo Elementary, and it's going to be a verified school because it's already in there. And so if you wanted to take the steps to get verified, you can click the blue get verified button that I just clicked, and it's going to take you to the help desk, and then you could submit a request to get verified if it's something that you're really passionate about and wanting to utilize as a big community tool. Absolutely. So this is where you'd access other educators in your school story, that sort of thing would all be accessed here. Underneath that, we have popular teacher resources. I told you there's some really neat resources provided by Class Dojo. I'm not going to go through every single one of them because that would take us hours. But I do want to point out that they do have training. There's 30-minute interactive ones, so it's pretty quick, pretty easy. If you really enjoy Class Dojo after this presentation, you're like, wow, I really see myself utilizing this in January when the kids come back after winter break. They have an introduction video so students know expectations and know why you're using Class Dojo. They also have these big idea videos, which I've told you, the social emotional aspect. And so it helps students manage emotions and navigate day-to-day things. And then down here, there's more resources, getting an app on your phone because you can navigate all of this on your phone as well, contact them. And then if you wanted to refer someone else, of course. So let's jump into creating a class. If you've never used Class Dojo before, you're like, I'm a little bit nervous. I don't want to create a class that I'm not going to use, and then I have to archive it and look at it forever, right? You can play around in the demo class. Anything you do in this demo class does not save. So you can record yourself. You can make as many class stories as you want. You can add students. You can give students points. You can do every single thing that we're going to be like practicing in your demo class. And once you leave that class, it all erases. It's all gone. So you don't have to worry about messing anything up. If you're like, no, I feel pretty confident, I think I can follow along, I want to create a class with you, that's totally fine. I'm comfortable with that. You're just going to go ahead and click new class. So pretty straightforward. It's asking for a class name and a grade. So as an elementary teacher using this, I taught everything, so I didn't really need to include a subject with it. However, for maybe upper elementary or even middle school, you might be teaching just a specific subject. So I do suggest including very specific information in your class name so that parents and students know what's going on and where this is coming from, especially if they have more than one teacher. So typically in the past, I would start by giving a year. So I would say 2022 or 2023 school year, right? And then I'm going to include my name because I want them to know who the educator is. If it's a specific class, again, if it was health or science, I might put science or health on there. Seeing as it was just elementary, I'm leaving at that, but I do want to put a grade because maybe they have more than one kiddo at home. And so I want to make sure that they know what grade they're in. And if there's anything else that you want to include, you're more than welcome to. There's plenty of space. I limit it at that. If, again, it's up to you how much you want to include. The more details, the better, in my opinion. And then you can choose what grade. You can also go with other if you don't want to specific, if you maybe have multiple grades, if you don't want to specify that sort of thing. Seeing as third grade is kind of my sweet spot, I'm going to choose that just as my sample class. If you have co-teachers or someone else that you want to include in your class, maybe you want to include the librarian, the PE coach, whoever it may be, you can invite them. If they're already verified with the school, you can just start typing their name and it'll connect it automatically. If you know their email, you can type in their email. If you're like, I don't have anyone I want to share with, that's okay too. So right now, I don't really have any co-teachers right now. So I'm going to say, I don't have anyone. And so your screen's going to look like this. We have the very obvious big blue button in the middle that says add students, which is kind of their priority because we're wanting to do this for our students, right? And so in order to create our classroom community, we need to put our community in here. So we're going to go ahead and click add students, and you can choose to either type in the students, or if you have a list of them, you can just copy and paste them, first and last name in there. It's pretty straightforward. It says right here, copy and paste your student list. You can import it from Word, you can import it from Excel, whatever works for you. If you don't want to copy and paste, you can just start typing. What's really nice about this feature is, let's say that, so I'm in a third grade classroom right now, right? Let's say that my Juniper Doe was in a second grade classroom in the same school last year. And so if that's the case and her parents connected, she's going to pop up automatically, and that information is going to transfer straight into my class for third grade. So that information transfers right over if the educator before was using Class Dojo and you're in the same verified school, which is really, really nice. So if not, that's okay. You can plug in that information yourself. You can invite parents. There's other ways to get that going for maybe the teachers next year. However, in this case, since this is all pretend, I'm just adding fake students, right? So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple just so you can see what that looks like. Again, if they're already in your school directory, they're going to pop right up. So let's add Juniper Doe. Let's add Posey O. And I know that, let's go ahead and add another Wyatter, right? So we've got some students. Whenever you're done putting your students in there, either copying, pasting, typing, whatever makes your heart happy, you're going to click save. You can go ahead and start connecting with families if you're ready to do that. Maybe you have your phone number and roster and you're like, I'm just going to invite them right now. You can do that by either entering their information here, as you can see, or you can download a printout and send it home with your students. So you have options on how you get parents connected. You can enter the information yourself, or you can send a printout and parents can take care of it on their end. So looking at your classroom, we have our students, you have our whole class. If you forgot a student, you can add them last minute and it's the same exact thing, right? So let's go ahead and click on Juniper. When you click on Juniper, all of this pops up. I'm going to actually switch to a different class very quickly just because it covers a couple more details. That way you don't have to watch me add all of it. It's possible, but so if we switch to this class real quick. All right, so we still have a Juniper in here too, so that's perfect. So looking at Juniper, we have her name and then it says how to hatch an egg. If you click that, students can hatch their own eggs by logging in at home. And so if you give them their logins, they can do that on their own. And then you can also view settings to see what's going on. So if maybe you have a student that doesn't have the ability to log in at home, maybe their parents aren't super involved, whatever the case may be, and they're like, oh my gosh, my egg won't hatch. After 4 weeks, all of the eggs will hatch regardless. So they're not going to be left out on their monster being created. So their eggs turn into monsters after 4 weeks, whether or not their families or they get connected at home. What's fun about this is when students get connected at home and they have their eggs hatch, they can customize their monsters, and that's a little bit of more personalization and buy-in from the student, which is fun. So something else to notice. So you can hatch the egg. You can also resend invites if you're like, well, maybe the parent lost it. It was a busy time, whatever the case may be. Absolutely. But what I want to point out is the feedback. So giving feedback. This is the classroom management skill side of Class Dojo. And this is what a lot of teachers love it for. So whenever you get feedback, you get the choice of choosing positive feedback or needs work feedback. I kind of see it as a glow or a grow, right? As an educator, I only sent home positive feedback because that's what I wanted families to see. That's what I wanted parents to know. And that's what I wanted students to be proud of, right? Like, what did you do right? Because that's what I wanted our focus to be. And I'm a strong believer in positive reinforcement. So with that being said, let's say that Juniper was working really hard in class. I can reward her with a point. And so she earns a little Class Dojo point. If I want to give the whole class a point for the same thing, you can give everyone a point and doing the same thing. Let's say that you are someone who supports the needs work kind of side of things. And you're like, I do want students to know that they need to work on certain things. If you click on needs work, I had to add skills. So on the last class that you saw, there wasn't a needs work button. And so that's why I transferred over, because you have to add this in. So you can add skills for the needs work. And then here is where you choose how to change things. So you can send all points for parents, positive points, or no points. So maybe you don't want any of this going home to parents. Maybe you're like, I just want to keep my classroom management in my classroom, and I'll notify parents in a different way. That's totally fine. However, in my case, I personally choose positive points only. And with my needs work points, I made them neutral, meaning that they're only worth 0. So they don't hurt the students if they are not following voice level in this example. It's not going to take away any of their points that they've already earned. It's simply going to just give them a reminder of, hey, maybe start following voice level, right? So if I gave that, it makes kind of a sad noise, but it is a 0, so it doesn't affect them in any way. Okay, so moving forward, what else can you do? If you want to add some skills, if you do that, let's say that it's positive and you want to add a positive skill, you can change the little emoji. They don't have a ton to choose from, but there's enough to where you can get creative with it. And so maybe you want it to be a smiley face and you want the skill to be team leader, I don't know. And maybe that's really important this year and you want it to weigh 2 points. So you can save that and then you have that skill to use in the future for your students, and it's now there. So maybe Abby was a really great team leader. Hey, if you accidentally award or unreward points, you can undo the last thing and it'll take away or add the points as necessary. You can also add notes. So add a parent note for Jagger about not following voice level. So in math, Jagger had a hard time keeping his voice level at 0. And then that can be noted on his profile. His parents will be notified of that if I choose. and so forth. Or maybe I'm just using this as my documentation for everything. And so when I get on here, it'll have all of that there for me. All right, so I'm going to move forward from going on each student's profile. No, I'm not. I'm going to talk about redeeming points before I do that. You can redeem students' points, and this is kind of up to you as an educator on how you want to do that, what you want the points to be worth. This is where it's really important you probably set those expectations with your students as you establish Class Dojo. So for example, maybe when a student gets 20 points, they get to be class DJ during breakfast. Maybe when they get 100 points, they get 5 extra minutes of prodigy time on Friday. I don't know. It's up to you to decide how the points are redeemed, when they're redeemed, and how many they need to redeem, right? So let's say that Abby wanted to redeem her 1 point, and that means that she got to take her shoes off for the day, right? I don't know. She redeems a point, it's gone, but she got to take her shoes off. So she earned her reward essentially. In the classroom, there's something on the bottom, quite a few somethings actually. I want to talk about the toolkit. So when you click on the bottom where it says toolkit, you have lots of little tools. They look like little apps almost. There is a timer, which does exactly what it sounds like. You can kind of choose one that's already pre-made or create your own. There is a random name generator. So if you're having a hard time choosing who's going to be line leader for the week, you can click that. And it'll choose for you. Maybe River's absent, so you're going to have it pick again. It'll choose someone else. Okay, something else that this toolkit does is it has a group maker. This is probably my favorite tool of the toolkit because it allows you to not only create groups within your students, but you're also able to choose who you don't want grouped together. So for example, let's say that Abby and Allie are twins and they just do not work together because they live at home together and it's just too much, right? So I don't want them in the same group. So I'm going to choose those students. So I chose Abby and Allie. So I already had them, so I'm not going to have them there twice, obviously. And then let's say that I want to have, let's say 3 groups. So it generates 3 random groups for me, but we'll notice that Allie and Abby are not in the same group. So it'll purposely keep them separated to avoid conflict or whatever the reason is that I have those students separated. Let's see here. You can also, talking about groups, I know it says students right here it says groups. If you have like class tables or groups that you want permanently set, you can add them right here as well. So if you don't like just the whole class setting, you'd rather them be grouped, you can do that as well. Going back to our toolkit, there is a noisemaker. There's many websites that educators have the ability to use using noisemakers. I personally have never used this one specifically. However, you can see at the bottom, there's a sensitivity scale. And so maybe you have your students working in groups, but you do want them monitoring their noise level. They're going to be able to be noisier because the sensitivity is lower. However, maybe you have students working independently and you don't need them using their voices. So if you set the sensitivity higher, you'll notice that even though I'm using my voice at the same level, it's going off much higher. You're seeing that red because it is much more sensitive. So you can kind of monitor and adjust that as necessary. It does need access to your microphone though. That's something to keep in mind. There are a lot of the tools like the directions, the today, and the think, pair, share are kind of very similar directions. You can just kind of create new directions to post. Good morning. Please get seated and read to self. And then I'll post it on the screen for you. And then think, pair, share is very similar. If you're maybe needing a minute to get something hooked up, maybe you are, I don't know, waiting for papers to be passed out, but you want students engaged, you can either use one of the social emotional questions they have created or creating your own. How was your weekend in science camp? And you can post it while those papers are getting passed out and your other students are think, pair, share, sharing with each other. Oops. Again, very similar. You can type any sort of announcement. It'll put it on your screen. It comes with a date though. So all of those tools are very, very similar, just kind of how you want to fine tune them. Last one, if you don't want to utilize YouTube or something else in the background, Class Dojo allows some music choices. don't know, can you all hear it? Okay. So you have some mellow music. Maybe you're having some morning, we're just all waking up, or maybe you're having a good time. I haven't allowed them to play for very long, so I don't know how quickly the tune repeats, if I'm being honest, but it's there if you need some background noise. Something else on the bottom is there's an attendance feature. I know that most educators probably take it through some different source. So I've never really messed with this feature too much because it was just like one of those things that I felt was a little excessive. So you can mark attendance if you feel necessary. Sometimes parents like that because they're like, oh, well, especially if there's multiple periods that you're teaching, like, oh, why did Billy miss third period health class, right? That might help them. Power school and other things are being done. However, something to know about attendance. If you're choosing to mark attendance and a student is absent and you give the whole class points for teamwork or whatever the case may be, the absent student won't earn those points because they weren't there and you mark them absent. So that's just something to keep in mind. You can also select multiple students here at the bottom. So maybe Abby, Allie, Carson, and Jagger were doing phenomenal and just doing amazing in class. You can go ahead and give them all a point specifically. That way you're not taking a point away from other students, but you are rewarding the students that are on task for doing the right thing. There's the random generator again at the bottom. This one is different only because then you can reward a point after the random student's chosen. So that's up to you to use. If you use the one in the toolkit, it doesn't ask you to reward a point. There's the timer again. This one looks a little bit different and it has the stopwatch as well. So just something to keep in mind. And then here are the big idea videos that I am very enthusiastic about. So up here you can see Mojo with a couple of his peers, and it gives topics like growth mindset, perseverance, empathy, gratitude, big challenges, all kinds of different things that students can learn from and engage with. Conundrums are fun because they're problems that don't have like a right or wrong answer. And so those are kind of fun. I always save those for kind of the end of the year after state testing, when students kind of wanted to engage in a little bit more of like navigation of their brains. So looking at growth mindset, if you choose whichever one you like, you can see that they have a bunch of little videos. And then what's cool about some of them is they have additional activities that you can engage with your students. And so in the studio, if you choose the first video, because they go in order, your brain's like a muscle, it has a discussion guide, you can start the activity. So if you start the activity, it has the video for you. And you'll notice right here, it's only a little over 2.5 minutes, not very long at all, very quick, very easy to access. So after you play the video, there are questions created for you. And so you can download the guide and give it to the students specifically, or you can just have them answer verbally with table groups, whatever the case may be. And then you can also share with families what you're doing here. So again, that is our big idea videos. You can access that in 2 different ways. You can do that through your classroom, through big ideas on the bottom, or whenever you go to your launch pad. Oh gosh, why wouldn't it send me there? It's not letting me go back to my launch pad. Okay, that's all right. So with that being said, going back to our launch pad, there we go. Looking at this, we were just talking about the big idea videos. They're right here, located right here. So student introduction video, if you'd like to get into that, as well as Class Dojo. I do want to go into the classroom and create an activity and play around with that portfolio view for just a moment before we wrap up the presentation. So I'm going to go into this class. And so we've talked about all of our classroom features so far and all of the tools at the bottom. We're now moving over to portfolios. So if you have created anything in portfolios, it looks something like this. If you haven't, it's going to ask you to create a post. And so it'll say create activity right down here. So portfolios, you have all of your students here. And you can choose each one, and none of these students have anything in their portfolio besides Billy right now because he only has a personal comment for me. So what you can do in portfolios is, let's say that okay, so this is probably what you're seeing if you haven't created anything in your portfolio. It probably looks like this. You can create an activity and then post it to your portfolios. So this should look really pretty familiar to what you saw earlier. And so you're going to create a title for your assignment. Maybe it is a volcano observation. Right? And then you're going to decide what kind of response you want. Do you want your students to do a text response? Do you want a video response, photo, a drawing, or a worksheet like a file upload? Here you can type instructions. So please, actually, I'm sorry, using the drawing feature, please illustrate your observation of the volcano. Be sure to provide a caption, right? So you can type that and then choose drawing for your students to respond with a drawing. If you prefer them to draw on a piece of paper and upload it as an attachment, you could do that as well. If you don't want the whole class responding as a drawing, so maybe instead of doing the whole class responding as a drawing, maybe you want Juniper to respond as a drawing, and then you'd create and assign a different activity for Posey and Wyatt to respond in a different way. Okay, so you can customize that if you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and just assign it to the whole class. What's also neat about this is if you want to, again, continue to accommodate or just feel like recording your instructions, you can do that with this record button. And so if you click it, it's going to pull up a whole recording. And so you can record your directions. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So using the drawing feature, please make sure that you illustrate your observation of the volcano. Please make sure to provide a caption. You have up to 8 minutes that you can record of instructions if you would like to. And then if you're like, okay, I recorded myself, let's see. Using the drawing feature, please make sure you can watch yourself over. We're not going to do it, but we can watch ourselves over, and maybe you're like, oh, I stumbled on my words. I didn't give clear instructions. I spoke too quickly, whatever the case, you can retake if you need to. If you're happy with it, you can just click continue and it will upload onto your activity. And so if you'd like to do both, you're more than welcome to, whatever the case may be, and then you can assign it to your class. Okay, and then it'll tell you, I only have 3 students in my class. 0 out of 3 of those students have done anything with that activity because they're not real students, right? But it'll keep you posted on what they're doing, how far along they are, and that sort of thing. After they complete the assignment or the activity, excuse me, you have the ability to post it into their portfolio so that their families can see their work. So maybe they did awesome on an assignment and you want to share it with them, that activity can be shared with families. Maybe it wasn't their best shining moment and you don't want the family to necessarily see that posted with all of their other great work. That can be maybe saved and put in a different spot, and then you can share it during conferences rather than on where all their glowing work is. So portfolios are super cool. You can do the it also provides activity ideas. So if you want something that's kind of quick, you can tie in. A lot of these are in their big idea videos that you can tie in with their activities. So we've talked about the classroom. We've talked about portfolios. We've talked about the class story, but let's play around with it a little bit. So you saw a screenshot of the class story previously. And again, it looks very much like Facebook or other social media platforms. Here you have the opportunity to type what you need to say. If you don't want to type it or you have an attachment that you'd like to upload, you can click the photo video and then you can browse your computer for whatever it is that you need to upload. If you choose instead that you would rather just do a straight file, again, same process. If you have a video you'd like to record, you can record yourself live again. It's the same thing as what I did with the activity. And again, you have up to 8 minutes and then you can post that as well. Or maybe it's an event. So maybe you're having Taco Tuesday in your classroom. It's a fun festivity and it's going to be on the 6th, right? And it's going to be all day. Good morning, please bring your favorite toppings. Maybe it's some sort of class celebration, who knows? So you can accommodate that. make it as fun and festive as you want. And then for reminders, you get to choose when you remind parents. You can choose right away, right as you post it. You can choose 5 days before, 1 day before, the day of, all of it. And then you can create that event. And then it pops up and it looks like normal social media things. If we wanted to upload some sort of file, let's say we wanted to upload, hey, I'm a digital learning coach. You want to reach out to me? Use this QR code. I can post that into the classroom and it's there for educators to use. I'm sorry, not educators, for parents to use if they needed to. Okay, and then you can also invite people to your story. All of the events are listed out to the side. But again, it just turns into like a news feed. Then the last thing that I am going to be discussing today is going to be messages. So with messages, unfortunately, since none of my students are real, and so I don't have families connected, you're not seeing any of the parents' messages out to the side. However, if I go back to my presentation, I do have a screenshot of kind of what it looks like right here. And so you'll see the parent, once they are connected, their names will be listed here, and then you'll be able to message them. It's just like text messaging, kind of like how you see on this little phone screen. So you're able to find the parent, message them. If it's, let's say that little Abby has both her mom and her dad's phone numbers on there, her name's going to appear twice, and then up by her name up here, it'll tell you which parent it is. So maybe it's Juniper D's parents, and then it's dad Jose, and then if it's mom, maybe it's Mary, right? So it'll specify that if you wanted to. Other than that, those are most of the basic features. Do you all have any questions or concerns for me?
I do not. Thank you so much, Tessa. That was wonderful.
Cool. Thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you for having us. Allison, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I didn't realize everything that Class Dojo could do. Like I really liked some of the like tools, like the timer and like how it was very all encompassing. And then one thing, probably my favorite thing that you shared that I didn't know is that it can follow the kids from year to year.
Yeah,
so that's awesome. I was like, that's so cool that you could see the previous years. Like that'd probably give a lot of information. So
thanks, Allison. That's great input. I love that it travels with the kids as well, because it just gives them more buy-in too. Because they're like, oh, I might change my monster from last year. And then parents automatically know how to use the program, which is nice.
yeah, for sure. I can see like if a school or a district had a lot of buy-in where each teacher used it, I could see that that'd be really beneficial.
That'd be really nice. But yeah, I think that's everything that I have for y'all. So thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.